We are back in the Carpenters Arms for another pub chat, and this time we are joined by fashion designer and, dare I say, a bit of a London legend, Herbie Mensah. Thank you
Well,
very much for coming.
thank you very much. I love the London legend bit, so thank you. I'll take that any day, yes.
I figure we start sort of at the beginning
Mhm.
of your fashion kind of career. You've kind of described yourself before as a bit of a soul boy back in the 80s,
Oh,
and
so good, yeah.
I wanted to ask, kind of being surrounded by that much fashion, and I think especially club fashion,
hmm
how did that affect your kind of early dress and your early kind of thoughts on your own style?
A lot of it I got from my father because,
Mm.
like I said, he grew up having his
Yeah.
suits tailor made,
Yeah.
and plus my mum sort of made her own dresses as well, and so I've got my sort of love for fashion through them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, yeah. Then when I just sort of discovered the sort of when I was at school, I discovered sort of like the soul music and the soul music sort of scene. And that I sort of just delved into it.
Yeah.
And basically, it was basically making your own fashion, charity shops.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've obviously borrowed some of my dad's clothing and
As you
stuff,
do.
yeah, to his annoyance. And you sort of just live to dance.
Yeah.
You'd buy one drink, which was blackcurrant and lemonade, and that would last you the whole night.
Yeah.
But then you just sweat it out dancing on the dance floor, and you take a change of clothes.
Yeah.
When you sweat so much, you sort of like just change clothes and stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm.
And obviously at that time, obviously I was still at school. Unfortunately, yeah, I used to sort of bunk off school. There used to be a soul session on a Friday afternoon called Crackers down Wardour Street, and we used to sort of like take the afternoon off school because it was on a Friday afternoon, and we'd just go down there to take ties off, put them in our bags or pockets or whatever, take our blazers off. But it was so obvious. But there were so many kids there in white shirts and black trousers. You was obviously from, you know, at the time of school.
Yeah.
And there was a few shops around down Oxford Street at the time.
Yeah.
There was one called Mr. Byrights, and there was Take Six, there was this and that. And you started off at a shop called Mr. Byrights because it was cheap. It was like the Primark of the day. It was like really sort of like cheap. Probably for £5 and you could kit yourself out in a whole outfit. Then after that, and it was a bit of a uniform.
Yeah.
It was like fluffy jumpers, plastic sandals you used to get in lily whites. Those ones that the divers used to wear, on the beaches and stuff like that. Peg trousers or pointed shoes, and a neckerchief, bowling shirts, as well. And that was sort of like the uniform, the go-to uniform at the time. And there were some of us who sort of like deviated from that. Would sort of try and create our own fashions and stuff or whatnot by trying to be a bit different. By putting a streak in our hair. I had a bit of an afro then as well.
Yeah.
And you'd put a bit of a sort of like a blonde streak in your hair. And that, just to be different. And
Because I remember, I think I heard you speak about that. Like everyone was kind of trying to pull their own little
basically,
bits from,
yes, it was a case of like trying to one-upmanship type thing.
Yeah.
And that you're either a good dancer or a good dresser.
Yeah.
I was a mixture of both.
Oh, there you go.
And
Okay.
I wasn't the top dancer, but
So
I had a bit of a dress
dressing,
sense. And that was it. And it was a case of like, it was like being a peacock. You're trying to attract, the admirers from the guys and from the girls and stuff like that. Well, mostly from the girls. And that was the sense of fashion you got. And you'd sort of mix it, and you'd buy a few bits from Mr. Byrights, and I'd get my mum to make me something, or I would go to a charity shop, and you mix it all in. Just try and be different, stand out from the crowd, sort of thing. And then as you got a bit more money, like I had a Saturday job or a part-time job, you'd go on to Take Six. And after Take Six, you go down to Wardour Street, not Wardour Street, it was South Moulton Street, that was it, South Moulton Street, which is a shop called Brown's, which is a bit more high class, a bit pricey, You go down there if you
leveled up.
Basically, or Woodhouse, there was another shop called Woodhouse as well, but my favourite shop was one called Stanley Adams, which was just off Carnaby Street. And they used to get sort of the really sort of cool latest Italian fashions from that, Then when you had something from Stanley Adams, you were like,
you made it.
The bollocks, basically, You'd made it, sort of thing, And you'd get a lot of admirers, and people would say, "Where did you get that from?" But you'd keep stum because you didn't want them running out to, And it was very annoying when somebody found out you'd got this shoes or this jumper or whatever from this shop, and they'd go and copy you and buy it, and then you wouldn't wear it again. Because somebody else had it.
So a bit of a trendsetter.
Basically, yes. So I was sort of quite well known for my fashion shows at that time. And,
I mean, and that obviously, because you kind of the first step career-wise into fashion was modelling.
Basically,
I'd love to know, you modelled for Vivienne Westwood back in like the heyday. How did that come about?
Purely by accident. it was like sliding doors moment. It was basically like I'd been out in the West End and that, and I'd been invited to this nightclub called the Embassy nightclub, and I didn't want to go home. I thought, I was going to go away home to come back again. And it was literally on the doorstep of I've been in the West End, because I was literally down the West End practically 24/7, practically every day. You know what I mean? Looking around, hanging around, messing around, whatever like that. So I went to this nightclub, and there was these two guys waiting out there. They got there early as well. I knew one guy who was a dancer, and he knew the other guy, who happened to be a guy called Michael Collins, who was the manager of the World's End shop at the time. So obviously it hadn't opened. We thought, well, let's go for something to eat or a drink. So we went for a drink, went to eat, and they all chatting amongst each other. Michael Collins said to me, would you like to do a fashion show?
Really?
And that's just out of the blue. And I go, yes. Not, I mean, who's it for? He goes, Vivienne Westwood. And I goes, oh, really? Yes. And I just said, yes for this. Basically. Anyway, went back to the nightclub, and now we exchanged numbers. And I did see him for the rest of the night, because he was off doing whatever and that in the nightclub. And that the next day he rang me up and said, oh, why don't you come down to a shop down the King's Road, World's End shop down the King's Road. I went down there, and I was just hanging about in there, and I was just seeing all these weird, wonderful people coming in. Mohicans, colourful clothes, like a lot of punks as well at the time and that. And I was just sat there in awe thinking, wow, these freaky people are just amazing. I couldn't believe it and that, And it's sort of like, thought, there's another side of fashion where it's like, just totally avant-garde and that.
Completely different.
Anyway, well, to cut a long story short, basically, Michael Collins had gone over Vivienne Westwood's head to get me to use me, basically, She wanted to use this other guy she used the year before. And he actually took me around to Malcolm McLaren's house. Malcolm had a flat, I think it was Covent Garden around the area somewhere. So he went to this flat, and Malcolm introduced me to Malcolm. I said, great, he sat down in this armchair. Malcolm McLaren was putting all these records on to his record player, and trying to choose the music for the show, and that, and he was putting on. He was asking me, "What do you think of this? What do you think of this record? What do you think of this record?" And I was thinking, "What?" He's asking me, "What the hell was he asking me for that for?" I thought, bloody hell! And I was just stood there in awe, thinking, "This is the guy behind the Sex Pistols, behind Bow Wow Wow, and
I mean, that's got to be a bit of a moment in.
It certainly was, and that. And he asked me my advice for what record I should play, and I just get to say yes, that one. Just
yes to everything.
Basically, not to offend him and that. That was it. They laughed, and then after it went for, and I just couldn't believe it. I was just like walking in days. I think, thank you. You took me to Malcolm's house. I think this guy's a legend, and that. But anyway, cut long story short, I ended up backstage of the show, which was in Pillar Hall, which was in Earl's Court, and that, which is. I think it's still there. I think they do home exhibition and stuff like that there. And that, but at this time I'd met Vivienne at all. So
there was still like a disconnection.
So he introduced me to Vivienne at the stove. She took one look at me, looked me up and down, and just walked away. She just walked off, totally blanked me.
Really?
Seriously, she just totally blanked me and that. And it just made me feel like, But anyway, we're all getting ready for the show and stuff. What could I do? And I did the first show was with Nick Kamen. He was like the Libro Uno model up there, and he was such a really, really nice guy. And I was going to Nick, what should I do? He goes, what you do is just go up and down, look like you give it attitude and blood this and this and that, then you come back and that, and everything,
And you'd never done anything.
I'd done a couple of college shows briefly to that, but nothing, anything sort of major than that. Did the show. You can get the show on video, by the way, on YouTube. And that did the show up and down. Did my thing. Had quite a few changes and that. And it was just so fun. It was a bit of a blur because I couldn't remember any of it. You see.
So the adrenaline was running.
Basically, and that, But anyway, after the show, backstage, getting dressed, getting changed, and things, Vivienne came up to me, giving it all the thank you so much. Oh, well, that was so much. Thank you. And I thought, well, bloody, she's changed.
She's changed. You proved yourself. There you go.
That was it. And that was it. And I thought, 3 minutes of fame. I love the show. I'm going home now, back to my homies, back down the Holloway Road. And that, and I used to sort of hang out down the local sort of sports centre, getting up to no good and stuff. It was McDonald's afterwards. Every evening, hang out around the sports centre, McDonald's afterwards, and mess about and that. And that was it. Then a few days later, she rang me personally, Vivienne, and said, would you like to do the show in Paris? Which is our very first show. And I go, I'd love to, and that, so that was it. She booked my ticket, booked my flight and everything, hotel room. I flew out there. The show was down the Champs-Élysées in a tea room. It's called the Angelina's Tea Rooms. That's what I remember. It was one of those big Art Deco types. Chandeliers hanging from the wall. It was just an amazing place. But there was no catwalk. The catwalk were literally boxes, makeshift boxes that they put up along the.
Just a second.
Basically, yeah. And some were that high, some were that low, some were that wide, some were that thin. And it was just
bit of a challenge, though.
It wasn't totally chaos. It was a case of like, if the model was coming there, you jump off, jump back on, and things like that. But it somehow worked because her clothes were very sort of like,
like mashed together
and stuff. And that was just an amazing show. And you can see the people outside, like the windows pressed against the.
Really?
Yeah. Pressed against, we're looking in, trying to get rid. There's people like looking in, this and that, people bugging to see. You can see all that going on. Yeah. It was total chaos on the outside, on the inside as well. So we ended up did the show, and that was just an amazing success as well. And then I got asked after the show. Like I said, I wasn't used to this at all. Just wasn't my sort of cup of tea or whatever in that. I got asked if I wanted to Japan to do some work there as well. But I couldn't take it, so I just said, "Can I go?" So I thought I don't want this. I want to go home. So I ended up going home, and then just hanging out with my friends because I thought I don't want to do this sort of thing anymore. But anyway, she rang me again and said, "Would I like to do some photo shoots for her and stuff like that and everything?" So I ended up going to Liverpool to do a daytime TV show thing. Like Richard and Judy or whatever it is, and a similar thing up in Liverpool. And that was it. And from then, I ended up doing, and that was the start of my sort of modelling career as
Because how long did you do that for originally? It was like, because you walked for Galliano as well.
I did Galliano's degree show, and I did a lot of the college degree shows for a lot of the students that were coming out the sign that.
Pretty impressive. But I mean, how long was that first modelling stint?
Oh God, that was 83, I think, 83. And I did right until sort of like early 90s. And I went to Tokyo, went to Japan, went to New York, went to Russia. Russia was another story.
Is there any any kind of specific experiences that come to mind, like just kind of mind-boggling, like I never expected I'd be here moments during that?
Yeah, Russia.
Yeah. Do you want to go into Russia?
Oh God, no, there was this woman had a company, a Finnish woman who had a company called Micmac in Finland, and she loved Vivienne so much. She went to all the shows with Vivienne, so we became sort of friends. And her daughter was one of the models who did a few of the shows, and she asked Vivienne if she could borrow a load of clothes to do a show in Finland, and take the show to Russia. So she borrowed a load of clothes, and we did the show in a circus tent in Finland during the halftime. The halftime break in Finland, and and it was well received by the crowd and that, in amongst the lions and the tigers and the acrobats and whatnot. It was great. And we did the show, and obviously Finland's right next to Russia.
Right next to Russia.
I think it was Leningrad, St. Petersburg, Leningrad. So hopefully the next day we packed all the clothes in the van, in the minibus, whatever it was, and we drove to the Russian border. And obviously we got at the Russian border, and a lot of us had our magazines and stuff, like face magazines. Somebody had a gardening magazine, I don't know what that was for. And but anyway, obviously we had to get out. They searched our cases and the bags, and obviously they confiscated the magazines and stuff as they would. And we got to the hotel, which was only for Westerners. So anyway, we got there, and obviously the authorities, whoever they are, they all came. They had to look at the clothing and this and that, and they saw the clothing, and they thought, you're not doing a show here.
No way.
So that was it. Didn't get to do the show.
Just cancelled it completely.
Cancelled it in the way, and we booked to stay there for like about 3 days. So we ended up staying in Leningrad for 3 days, and this was before the Iron Curtain fell. So basically, you just walked around, and people were queuing up for it. Was just totally like in a dystopian world. It was just like totally. Everybody was driving the same cars, and everybody was queuing up for basics. For wherever. And we went to St. Petersburg, the square where the Russian Revolution was, where they stormed the and that. And it was just absolutely amazing. And obviously it was like, and we were all dressed in Westwood clothing as well.
I mean, what is that like to be walking around, like Soviet Russia, dressed like that?
Well,
I'm sure you attracted some looks.
Certainly, it was like part of the Red Sea, because you literally walking through, and everybody was just going, "This is it," just looking at these Yeah, seriously, yeah, because we had a few other models and some of them had bright bleach blonde hair and stuff or whatnot, you know. And, oh God, it was absolutely amazing. And you see that the looks were just out of this world. They would have bought you from miles or something, you know.
Yeah.
And and this hotel we stayed in, obviously, it was not for Russians. It was just literally for like Westerners and that. And obviously you had a lot of the Russians outside.
Yeah.
Like obviously waiting for the front, and they always asking you, can we have your jeans? Can we have your trainers? Can we have your shirts? Can we have this? Can we have this? And well, you couldn't because you had nothing else to wear. But they were wanting to exchange.
Yeah.
So they wanted a cheap pair of pants, or they wanted your Nike special, whatever it is, that or Adidas, you know, shell toes or whatever. And that, we said no. Yeah, I'm not giving you my Westwood for your, like, you know, and that.
Yeah.
And I did meet one guy, Sergei, I remember his name was. He was spoke perfect English, perfect English, and and I arranged to meet him for a chat and that. And he took me here, there, this, like miles away, because he was so paranoid about being followed.
No way.
About talking to like somebody. And I just had a good chat, and I just got an introspective of what life was like there and what life was back here. And he could not comprehend that I could just walk out my front door, just go to a shop and just buy whatever I want.
Wow.
He couldn't comprehend it. And I said, I'd like to know where he is now. And I had this one young lad, he must have been about 10 years old. To this day, he gave me a compass and a packet of playing cards. Wanted me to smuggle him back into our minibus to take him back over the border into Finland. I said, I can't do that, you know. And I said, you've got to take your gift back. And he said, keep it. And I've still got that gift today. And I'm thinking, I wonder where he is now. He's probably out of the country now.
That's mad. Wow.
I'm sorry, I've gone off on a tangent.
No. So stuff like that up until the 90s. And then you completely pivoted and you started working. So you volunteered at a housing collective.
I worked for a housing collective. It was like, that was a proper job. I mean,
you did get
I had to earn a living. So I got social care, basically.
Why did that shift? And, you know, why make that shift from fashion into social care?
Well, I didn't have any expertise in fashion as such. I just modelled, and that was it. I didn't see myself as anything in that. I mean, I also had the love of clothing, but also started doing Portobello Market as a sideline. You know? And I was a proper day job. I worked my day job for about 4 days a week, and I did Portobello literally about sort of either 1 or 2 days a week. And and sort of just sourcing vintage clothing and stuff. And I basically started off selling my own clothing because I had so much of it. You know what I mean? Because Vivienne used to pay us in clothing. She never paid us in cash, which at first I wanted the cash because I looked at these clothes. When I first saw Vivienne's clothing, I'll pay you in clothing. I thought, I don't want this. I'm into Armani and Versace. That's clothes I wanted to that. But over time, her clothes grew, and that after seeing the other side of fashion as well, and I just thought, amazing. I loved it, and I used to have so many pieces. I had so many sort of like pieces, one-off pieces, and this and that. A wardrobe full of Westwood stuff. But I ended up selling it all off.
Really? So, I was going to say, do you still have it?
Well, obviously, when I met my wife, we had to find somewhere to live. So I basically sold my collection, which I regret to this day because I would have got a lot more for it now if I kept it all.
Is there anything from that period that you still have, or is it just it's all gone?
It's all gone. I've got a couple of badges. That was about it.
What? Because Portobello, you've kind of become one of the major figures at Portobello. I think people know you from Portobello. What is it about Portobello specifically? Because you grew up in North London, didn't you?
So I grew up in North London. Well, I live now in West London, so I literally live down the road from
But what is it about that market specifically that you think keeps kind of pulling you back?
Well, obviously it's an iconic. It's been there for years. Everybody knows Portobello Market. It's like the numero uno sort of vintage market. More so than I'd say Camden and that. I think it's surpassed Camden now. Portobello's the place to be. Obviously through the swinging 60s and the history of the area as well, Notting Hill, the Carnival and everything in there. So that's what puts it on the map. And everybody's been to Portobello Market. I mean, I've been there for quite a few years now. Everybody passes, people I haven't seen for years from my Soul Boy days. They've all gone past there and they recognise you from the back and you reminisce and talk about the old times and stuff and whatnot. You won't see them again for many years, or you may never see them again. And about some point in time, everybody passes by there. And,
I mean, how do you view that sort of community as well? Because it's obviously that community element is really important for. It seems to be very important in your work. I mean, do you think that there's something special about Portobello in that regard, that it builds a community?
Oh, of course it has, because it's steeped in history.
Yeah.
Like I say, obviously it's a place for immigrants, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, from Portuguese, you've got the Caribbean, you've got African, you've got Irish, you've got everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and this is it. And it's just like one big melting pot for everybody. And obviously you've got the expensive properties, properties now. And it's just a case of very middle class, very low class, very working class, everything. Everybody's in one big melting pot.
Yeah.
And the market sort of brings it all together.
Yeah.
Because you see everybody and anybody goes there, you see, regardless of race, colour, whatever, you know.
And then with your own collection, because obviously, was it just after COVID, just before COVID, you started your own?
It was literally during COVID.
Yeah.
Because obviously the markets are shut down.
Yeah.
And I had to make a living.
That's a big
and that, well, I mean, I was still doing my sort of like my social care work and stuff and whatnot. Yeah. But obviously, and it was the case of like the creative part of it. I love my vintage clothing and stuff like that. And it was literally a case of I got a few pieces together, deconstructed them, put them online. One thing sold, then I did something else, another thing sold, and it sort of snowballed from there. And I think I wanted something here. When the market reopened, I put like a bit of a collection together, and I took it down to the market. It sold, and it just sort of snowballed from there.
Because it's all kind of reconstruction and reworking of older garments.
Exactly, so and it was basically using what I really had. You know, and a lot of clothes that I've obviously doing vintage. You have a lot of clothes that left over that hasn't sold. I didn't want to get into landfill and stuff like that. So I basically sort of started reworking on it, and that's how it.
Is that I mean the desire not to throw it into a landfill, I think is I mean I've read somewhere that there was a question saying what are you most proud of, and you mentioned the ethical nature of your work.
Of course, yeah.
Why is that important to you?
Because there's so much fast fashion around. There's too much of it.
Yeah.
You know. And it's like a case of every year, every week practically, there's something new that's coming out, you know?
Yeah.
And then a lot of the fabrics as well that they're using, it's not natural. It's like, it's not biodegradable. It's like, well, it's too much plastic.
Too much plastic.
Too much plastic in clothing.
Yeah. I mean, do you think, I mean, I've noticed, especially recently, like going into charity shops, because I know you spend a lot of time in charity shops. It's just polyester.
Polyester.
I mean, are you finding it harder to source good clothing?
More so now than I used to. Definitely. And I've noticed a lot of charity shops now. A lot of the high street brands are shifting their stuff into a lot of charity shops now. You know. You don't find good vintage or good quality clothing like you used to. It really sort of too much high street stuff in the shops.
I mean, where do you want to see kind of fashion going? What would you like to see more of in kind of the fashion landscape? Just less plastic and
more of what I do.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that. I mean, like I say, a lot of these labels, a lot of the big labels, they must have so many clothes left over from way back, from their archives. Bring that back because fashion's changing all the time.
Yeah.
But is there a set fashion? 1 week it's skinny trousers, 1 week it's baggy trousers, 1 week it's like this and that. Yeah, but this day and age, everybody makes their own fashion. Yeah. So you don't really necessarily have to have a trend as such, you know.
Yeah.
Everything is fashionable. You make your own fashion.
Just depends how you wear it.
How you wear it, basically. Yeah. I know.
Yeah. And so, I mean, your designs are very eclectic. They're very kind of like, again, it's like pulling pieces from different areas.
Yeah.
How do you approach making something? Is it just what takes your fancy as you're sat at that desk?
It is, because I can't draw. I couldn't draw to save myself. So it's literally everything's in your head. Yeah. You get a picture of what you want to do. Yeah. And that, And like my process is I see something and I sort of like try and picture it in my head what I want to do with it. Yeah. And I'll start.
You just go.
I'll just go.
Yeah.
And that, and it's a case of, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake because it can be rectified. You can turn it to something else, or whatever. And my place is I'll start something and I'll get another idea for something else, and I'll shelve that, and I'll start something else, and I'll come back to that later on.
So the studio is filled with loads of half finished.
It's certainly
How much do you tend to sort of have on at once?
Well, quite a bit.
Prefer not to mention.
So
And then it seems as if in recent years your modelling has sort of returned. You're doing a lot more modelling, especially now you've got 4 kids. and quite a few of them model as well.
Yes.
What's it like sort of being a dad to kids that are kind of going through what you went to when you were their age?
Well, it's probably a lot easier for them. They get paid more as well. But I enjoy it now because, like I say, doing it in at my age, it's just fascinating because I just felt like fashion is for everybody.
Yeah.
There is no set age to love clothes or to love fashion or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I've always grown up loving fashion from being the age of 10, from the 60s. I've got photographs of me in the 60s wearing my stay pressed trousers and outside Buckingham Palace wearing my Brutus shirts and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was sort of like a young, I wouldn't call it skinhead, but sort of like rude boy, a young rude boy back in the day, and that my Harrington jacket and stuff. And it's lived with me throughout all these years. But obviously, as you get sort of older, you sort of like, I would be dressed as muttons, dressed as lamb. You sort of like
go figure out what works.
Yeah, what works for you at a certain age and that. But like I said, I love my vintage as well. I love my vintage, and I always wear a lot of like this sort of gear. This is like sort of my look, sort of thing.
I've stolen the look. I've been inspired.
Thank you.
As you've kind of figured out your style more, I mean, how do you find your own clothes? Is it just, are you hunting, or you've just got such a collection that you're sort of set?
I've got a bit of collection. I'm sort of set now. But I do get the odd piece every now and again if I
I imagine it's hard not to when you're hanging around.
Of course, exactly. So of course, I mean, obviously you've got the other stall holders there as well, and they get the odd piece that I think, oh, that's nice. I'll have that.
As a a Londoner through and through, why do you think London's kind of art and fashion scene is so special? Because I do think we have an amazing, creative scene here. Do you think that there's something really unique about London?
It's unique about London is because everybody thinks it's unique. Everybody thinks London is unique, basically. Yeah. Because we've created all the fashion from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Right through until now. Everybody still looks at us for the music. Music and fashion go hand in hand. And all the bands and that, and all the designers and this and that. And obviously you can take Italy and this and that, but they may have the fashion and this and that, but we've got the music. We've got the football teams, and we've got the eclectic mix of all the cultures. That makes it sort of unique, where everybody takes from everybody else, and that creates one big
I mean, do you think that's what it is? It's just the kind of diversity of the city, just everyone kind
of course
stealing from each other and making their own thing.
From the language, from the street language, from the street style, from everything. We're envied all over the world. Wherever you go, where are you from? I'm from London. Oh yeah, what's it like there? You know what I mean?
Big up London.
Basically, yes.
And then lastly, the last question I want to ask is, if you had one piece of kind of fashion styling advice to give to anyone, what would that one piece of advice be?
Wear something that makes you comfortable. Basically, Don't overdo it. Don't wear the clothes. Don't let the clothes wear you. Basically,
Very sound advice.
Herbie?
Thank you.
Lovely, jubbly. Thank you. Cheers. I'm a big football fan. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I didn't mention that.
I grew up around the corner from the Arsenal. You see, literally grew up from there, and then before we moved to Holloway, and now I went to school in Highbury, so
Oh, right. What's your London team?
Fulham.
No,
because my son played for the academy, you see, when he was younger.
That's fair enough then.
And, but I used to follow United throughout the 90s. I used to go everywhere, home and away, abroad a lot. I was really.
Why United?
When I was a kid back in the 60s, and I was running around the school, people used to say, I'll be Bobby Charlton, I'll be George Best, I'll be this, and I found out what team they played for, and that was it. It was always me. And that was it. And so if Manchester United playing football, everything stops. So I can watch them. I take time off the market to go home to watch the match. See, I'm a big football and fashion. That's my passion.
Football and fashion, that's a passion.